With the temperatures being so cold and everything being so windy, the house is cooling off quite quickly. I started the fire this morning. You can see probably, yeah, I think you can see it, the fan is still spinning. That means that the stove is still putting out heat, but the temperature in the house is dropping, so it's not putting out enough heat. This is like the first time since we've gotten the stove, I think, that this has happened where the stove doesn't heat the house, the little tiny house, while that fan is still spinning. Usually if the fan is spinning, we have plenty of heat. Well, this is kind of nice because that means I can start a stove with the coals that are already in it. Normally the coals are all died down by the time I get in here to start a fire, so then I have to start it from scratch. I use this little torch, not hard to use. And I've heard people say they refuse to use one of these. It's just not hard. You turn on the knob, you click a button, that's it. They're not hard to use, nothing to be scared of. Now, I always clean the window every time open the door. I get a little wet wipe. Now, it's hot. Now, if it's too hot, you can't do this. It melts the wet wipe right onto the window. If you use even a cotton cloth, like an old sock, same thing, it'll burn it right on. It's difficult to get off. But when it's, I don't know, it's hotter than my hand, but I can still do it without it melting everything. This is ceramic. Everybody's going to say, oh, it's going to break. It won't break the window because it's ceramic. It's not high temperature glass. This is ceramic, see-through ceramic. So it can take temperature changes. Now what I do is I take a little ash on my wet wipe and I can wipe off the areas that are the worst. Usually these two lower corners are always the worst. Most of the time it's not that bad. It's just a little dusting. Occasionally you'll get that tarry, sticky stuff, and the ash takes it right off. And then I just take the wet wipe. Now you can see that it's drying pretty well. I don't know if you can see, it's drying really quickly because the glass is hot, but you also see that it's not breaking the glass. I've spilt coffee on this while the stove is just full-fledged, and it doesn't break. Okay, and then I take a little old sock and I just wipe off the residue from the wet wipe. I do this every time. It makes it so easy to clean when I do it every time. Now, if it's too hot, like I said, you have to let it cool down. Now, the coals in the stove should be quite abundant. My ash bucket is full. I need to get out and dump it, but it'll do for today. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coals, I'm going to try to move them to the side. So the bigger coals, just move them to the side. I try to empty my stove out of ash every time. It just seems like it burns better. Because right here in the front is one of the air tubes that feed the stove air. And when you get ash in front of that, it just doesn't work. Now remember, this is unusual for me. Usually I don't have coals. We let it die down. Normally by the time that fan shuts off, it's 82 degrees in the house. We don't start it until it gets down to 68, 70 degrees. So it'll be hours normally before we have to restart it. But these high winds and cold temperatures have changed things. Now also remember, I try to keep my water tank outside from freezing with inside temperature. I got ventilation up above, right above your head here. All that hot air is blown into the water tank. Well, if it gets too cold in here, I'm worried it could freeze that tank. So I want to make sure that I keep the temperature at a reasonable temperature, nothing too hot. Okay, now that I got all the ash out of there, I'm going to take the coals now over here on the side. I'm going to put them right in the center, right where that air tube is. And then I have these little pieces that I'm going to run what I'm calling north and south, in and out. Put one on each side. I also put one in the back, like that. That's east and west. So now I have a square. If you count this front piece, the metal, I got a little square. That's holding all the ashes in. I do this also, even if I don't have the coals. Then I put little pieces of kindling in there, whether there's coals in there or not. If I want to start it with the blowtorch, I got the kindling. If I want to start it with the coals, I got kindling. Then I'm going to take a piece of walnut, just because walnut doesn't burn quite as hot. I'm going to put the walnut in the back. The thing I've noticed about these new wood stoves, I've even seen this in videos, is the backlog doesn't burn very well. So I put a low dense wood in, will burn just about as equal as a piece of oak. So then I put a piece of oak, if I have one in here, in the front. Oak is very dense. So that'll burn first, then the walnut. The entire time the wood stove has got a flame, something is burning. Whereas if you got the oak in the back, it may never light. It may just turn to coals. Then I take 3 pieces of small pieces and put them north and south. With this stove, it has fire brick right about there. That's the top of the fire brick. You're not supposed to put this wood any higher than the fire brick. So I'm right at it. You don't want it to touch these air tubes. I don't know if you can see the air tubes, but those air tubes, they're not supposed to touch because that's got to have air flowing through them. Now I got my bellow, and now I can relight the stove using this. With the wood stove being hot, it doesn't take as long for everything to get going. Obviously, if the chimney is hot, that heat draws the fire up, and so it actually makes the fire go faster. When the chimney is cold, it takes forever to get that chimney to warm up. I can tell it's trying to go. It's gonna go. There it went. I got a flame now. Once you get a flame, it's over with. You have no problems then. And I just keep at it. I just keep at it until I got the flame height that I want, because what's going to happen is smoke is going to roll into the house, because you got to start it with the door open. And as the fire gets hotter, then you can shut the door. So what I try to do is I try to get the chimney temperature to about 250 degrees, 200 to 250 degrees before I shut the door. That way, the chimney is drawing all that heat. But in the meantime, if you don't get that chimney hot enough, fast enough, you got smoke coming out into the house. So I just keep pumping this until got a nice flame coming out. That way, the chimney will heat up quickly. Now, after a second or two, I'm going to slow down how fast I'm using the bellow. That way, it's still getting lots of air. Now remember, I have 2 logs down there at the bottom, 2 small logs going east and west, in and out. I will come over to this side eventually and do it, but my flame isn't hot enough on this side. So when I am done, I want this flame to not die down. Okay, so now the fire is self-containing. It's going to do its thing by itself. I don't have to worry about dying down. It's died down a little bit since I used the bellow, but it's on its own now. Now what you want to do is you're going to start hearing the chimney chunk, 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 chunk like that. The reason it's doing that is it's expanding as it's getting hotter. What I do is I close the door, not all the way. I don't latch it. I'm going to put the mic up there so you can hear it. Okay. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but there's a click, 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 click. That means the chimney is heating up. I leave the door open until that clicking stops. Once the clicking stops, then I know that I can shut the door, and the chimney will draw that air in by itself. With these new wood stoves, what happens is if that chimney isn't hot enough to draw the air, these stoves hold the smoke in the box. The smoke won't go up in the chimney, it just sits there. Eventually, that's after you latch it, the smoke will pull out the fire. Now I have a thermometer. It's one of these laser thermometers. Do it like they do on those spy shows. There we go. And so then you can see what the temperature is. So I can hold that at the chimney, and right there at the base it's at 204 degrees. And then up there at the top. Now the thing is eventually you're going to want your chimney above 250 degrees. I wait until the base there is about 250-ish. Of course, that's when the clicking stops. So right now it's at 203. And then when I close the door, I wait till the top of the stove gets to 500 degrees with the vent all the way out. So you can see as we sit here and talk, the chimney is still clicking, but the fire keeps increasing. And you can see the air, look at the flames over here on this side. It's being sucked up. The chimney is hot enough that it's pulling the flames up. You would think that with the door open, it's getting its maximum amount of efficiency, but it's not, because what happens when you shut the door, the stove then starts burning the smoke. I'm sure you can see smoke coming off, maybe not, but there's smoke coming off the logs. As soon as I shut the door, the stove, using these air tubes at the top, will instantly start burning the smoke. The smoke fire, the fire made from the smoke, is actually hotter than the fire coming off the logs. And as soon as you start burning that smoke, it heats up really quick. So I think we got a good enough flame going now, so I'm going to shut the door. And now you'll start to hear that it's clicking really fast. If I were to put the thermometer on that, you would see that temperature going up really fast. So you'll see that the color of the fire has changed. It's gotten darker looking. That's smoke burning. Blue flames. I know it's hard to see in the camera, but over here is the fire from the log. That's orange. This is a dark orange blue color. That's because the smoke is burning in with the flames. That smoke is what's causing all the heat. So if you'll check out this little box on the window here, it's the up next, that takes you to my other channel. I'd really appreciate it if you check that out. So I hope I can inspire you to stay warm when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.